your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girl, what's his name? We call him the Chief. The Chief. You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Yo, we track down the truth. You know what? Track down the truth. You know it. What do they call him? We call him the Chief. The Chief. You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on Pop Culture Minefield's Facebook page and their Twitter feed every Tuesday with the Chief at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we go over police or crime-related movies from the lens of law enforcement. And we've been doing this, I've been doing this now for a couple of years, having a great time doing it. And I bring a lot of friends or people that I've met through my travels in law enforcement, and we go over movies. And, today I got a really funny movie that we're going to go over. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you, you can also catch me on my radio show. Yes, I have a radio show. It's called Briefing with the Chief, where I analyze political issues, public policy issues from a law enforcement perspective. And I think tomorrow, let's see what tomorrow, what am I doing tomorrow? God, I'm oh yeah, Dallas in March had 4 police suicides. And so I'm going to revisit the issue of police suicides, post-traumatic stress with Danny Kuhn. He's an expert on it. And that will be my show tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on KJ's Briefing with the Chief, KBRDB.com, Briefing with the Chief. And you can find that on their Rumble page. And, they leave all the shows up now. They used to take them behind a paywall, and now all those shows are available at KJ's Rumble channel. And you can find them on their Twitter feed, their Facebook page. And you can listen to the radio show live by downloading the KJDB.com app and listen to the show live. And you can also go to KJDB.com. Briefing with the Chief, and find all the audio versions of my show. Good morning, Penny. Thank you for joining us here. And so, I'm doing that subject, and one of the other things I'm doing on that show, and I'll let my guests weigh in a little bit too after I bring them on because they're retired law enforcement, is I'm starting to look at who's running all these protests around the country, the money behind it. Because we've been through this before with Black Lives Matter and all that other stuff. It is not organic. It is funded by wealthy folks who want to disrupt. And the thing that bugs me about it is law enforcement was the target in the past and continues to be the target. And here's what happens when you get these protests. After a while, the media stops showing up. After a while, it just becomes part of the political landscape and nobody pays attention. So they got to ramp it up. There's got to be violence. There's got to be assaults on the police. So they say, oh, look, the police. So they'll call it police violence when the police respond. And the police get put in the middle. And I see this at the beginning. We already have had swatting of conservative writers. We've already had burning of Tesla dealerships. We've already had the vandalizing of personal property. People own Teslas. People being pulled over or tracked down and then assaulted because they own Teslas, called Nazis. So the violence is already starting. It's already starting. And it's only going to get worse until we actually expose the people who are actually doing it. And you'd be surprised. I did a show on the guy behind the Tesla stuff, and he was the nephew of Oscar de la Renta. And his dad was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, he says he's trying to take down the oligarchy, but he's part of the oligarchy. You don't go, I mean, he lists on his bio page that he's a life adventurer. Well, who the hell can do that if you grow up blue collar? You can only do that if you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, which that guy clearly did. And I'm going to profile a couple other people tomorrow who are part of it and grew up in some of the wealthiest communities in our country. Now they're leading grassroots organizations to help the working class. It really is just to help themselves stay in power. And a lot of these people who run these nonprofits make multiple six-figure salaries. So it's about money for them. It's about power for them. It isn't about helping you. And of course, the cops are going to be put in the middle. So listen to my show tomorrow on KGRDB.com and hear my thoughts. Of course, you're already kind of getting a flavor on where I'm going with that, just on this lead in. Now, hey, on Pop Culture Minefield here on Morning Coffee with Chief, I want to make sure that you subscribe to YouTube's Pop Culture Minefield. If you're watching us on Rumble, there you follow us on both platforms. Make sure you like the show and share it with a friend. Now, I got to do my plug for the LA Mission. I am a longtime supporter of the LA Mission. I still sit on their foundation board. They're doing some changes there. And there's been, because of this negativity towards a lot of the nonprofits, there's been a pullback of donations, but the LA Mission is one of the good ones. So go to the lamission.org and make a donation today. They do wraparound services and help people reintegrate into society. It isn't just about shelter beds and food. It's about shelter beds and food and also integration into a long-term programs to help you get off the street. You can see the links are also in the comment. Thank you so much, Martine, for doing that. And you can pull up that website today and just make a small donation, $25, $50 every now and then. And once you get in their little loop, they send you mailers and, just a little bit of money. You don't have to mortgage the farm to help a man in need. Okay, so thank you for that, and again, thank you for joining us here today. And we're gonna get into our movie here. And before I do, let me bring on our guests. God, they're both retired sergeants, so I can't go in rank order. So I think I'll go with what I think is when law enforcement and the military is how it works. So the person who's been longest in rank, technically, when they show up at the scene, are in charge. And I don't know who that is. I think it might be Scott Orr. So let's bring on Scott Orr. So, all right. So Scott, when did you promote to sergeant? What year? See if I got it right.
Actually, Cliff and I were both in supervisor school together.
All right. So you both show up and you arm wrestle, which I think you win that arm wrestling contest about who's in charge. Okay.
Yeah, we both were very disruptive in the supervisor school. So, yeah, we sat next to each other, actually.
Well, I could tell this is going to be a good show then. So, well, let's bring on our other guest, and that is Cliff Yates, retired sergeant, LASD. Same promotion date. Hey, Cliff.
Same promotion day, side by side, causing trouble, disrupting the class.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, I could imagine. There's times when I showed up at a place and I was a supervisor, and I go, oh God, I got to supervise him. And you love the guy, but you just know the guy's going to drive you nuts the whole time, just because he wants to drive you nuts because he likes you and you like him. And I could throw out a few names, and you'd probably go, oh yeah. So
yeah.
All right, you heard my lead in about these protests, and I'll let you guys get a little political. The way I see it is, the protests start nonviolent and just expressing voices, but eventually it stops getting the traction that the protest groups want, and so they ramp up the violence. I mean, they already started a little bit here. Well, not more than a little bit, firebombing. But they'll always push the envelope because that's what gets the cameras rolling, right? And so I see this. We're going to do 4 years of these nutcases running around creating violence, and it'll be burning buildings in the back, but it'll mostly peaceful is the way the media will report it. But it's coming. They're going to push the envelope just like they've done in the past, and law enforcement will be caught in the middle. What's your thoughts, Scott?
It's all just a scam, Pat. It's all about money. It's all about trying to keep, we're going to disrupt 4 years of a president that some people don't like, even though you got all the votes, the popular votes, the swing states, but we're going to do whatever we can to just disrupt everything so nothing gets done. And then hopefully they can get back in power. And then I always say this, how do you by using violence, how do you get people? How does that sway people to your point of view? So,
Well, I think it's because they're willing. The people who they watch the violence. I don't know. I just remember doing protests at the federal building, or not me protesting, but managing it or being in the crowd. Working it. I was always put undercover sometimes when I was a deputy, and you have leaders in those crowds that kind of, okay, we're going to go do this. And then they do it, and everybody else in the crowd, because cops aren't taking aggressive action, think it's okay. I mean, you saw this in the fall of Minneapolis stuff, right? People were tentative at first, but as the crowd got more aggressive and the cops didn't push back, they kept getting more aggressive, and then violence became the issue. And anytime cops got pushed back, it got called police violence. And that's what I see as coming. Cliff, so what do you think? You think I'm right on that? That's going to be the recipe for disaster for the next 4 years?
You're right on that. I listened to a guy on the radio, Brian Craig, but he films himself live on YouTube at the same time. And so he really invites, and he starts his show. This is where MAGA comes to talk. And he invites everybody to, call in on these issues, specifically liberals, so they can have a discussion. And eventually, he pins them down on specifics. Well, Heggs did this, Heggs did this. And well, what specifically? He hasn't done anything wrong. What specifically when you say that? And eventually they blow up and they curse him out, and then he has to dump them, and he had to hit the dump button. And he made a good point. He goes, he says these liberals, that's their lifeline, because they have talking points, and if I press them on it to try to have a conversation, eventually they come to the end of those talking points and they go right to cursing, and they have to hang up on themselves. And it seems to be a consistent thing that happens.
Yeah, their research is an inch deep and a mile wide.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
They never really get into anything of depth. I mean, the first show I did on one of the protesters, it was one of the guys running. So he starts a nonprofit. He was part of other nonprofits that are leading this stuff. Then he starts his own nonprofit, which means he wants billionaires to give him money, and then he'll pay himself $250,000 to $300,000 a year, and then he'll hire, his friends to be on his board, and he'll pay them hundreds of thousands a year. And he says, I'm the self-appointed guy running the protest against Elon. And then when you look at his background, his dad was the banker basically for the Dominican Republic. Right.
Yeah.
And his uncle was Oscar de la Renta, the fashion designer, and they're fighting the oligarchs, and he's a part of the oligarchy. And I'm like, this is crazy. The crazy part is the media doesn't report who these clowns are. And, and I was looking on his bio. I'm a life adventurer. I go, well, you know what? I would love to have gotten out of college and been a life adventurer, but, I had to freaking go to work. So who is this guy telling me how I gotta live my life? And this is a guy that's lived nothing but a privileged life in which everything has been handed to him. And, of course, he's in the bastion of power, immediately gets a job in government, because he knows somebody, right? And then he goes to these nonprofits when he's out of government, because he knows them too, making six figures. And I'm just thinking to myself, why do these people from the working class follow these morons? I don't get it. They have nothing in common with them. And it just drives me crazy. I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to look into these guys. And of course I've been posting on Twitter, and I just get attacked. I posted. I forget one of them. I think it was Indivisible, right? So they're the big ones running a lot of the protests. So last year they got $7 million in donations, $7 million. And they had money in the bank. They had another $7 million in the bank. So they had assets, right? They spent $8 million on salaries last year. $8 million.
That didn't surprise me.
So I'm thinking, well, it's kind of like the whole DEI stuff. I did a show on DEI. At University of Michigan, I did a show on that, and the head of the DEI stuff at the University of Michigan was making $400,000. You're never going to get rid of inequities. You're never going to get rid of racism and all that other stuff as long as the people who are out there with the equity slide ruler make hundreds of thousands of dollars to find inequities. I mean, we're all right. You guys, we're show buffs. That's why we're here, right? So I'll throw a show reference out there and see if you guys. So Dr. Zhivago, classic, right? Have you watched that one? Either one of you guys see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
So there's a scene where the female commissar or whatever she is. So Dr. Zvagos comes from a wealthy family. He's a doctor. His dad was a retired doctor. They have a big house and they throw big parties. And hey, Penny, and there she is. She said, "Hello, Cliff." And so after the Bolsheviks take over, they move a bunch of people into their house and they move the family of 5 basically into their library. Right, that's the space they get, is their library. And the commissarina, whoever she is on the block, breaks into the library and says, "Oh my God!" And she's measuring. There's so much more space. We could put 2 more families here. We could put 2 more families here, right? This is crazy. You have too much space. And the great Alec Guinness plays a Bolshevik himself, and he is like a second cousin to this family. Nobody knows it, and he shows up and he kicks the great crazy commissar. So, but what that scene reminds me of is she's got her slide rule of equity out. Oh my God, you got 3 more feet of space than everybody else. We have to have inequities. We have to overcome these inequities and give 2 more families space. You can't have this. This is wrong. And that's the way I look at, this modern day Marxism, the DEI equity and inclusion and all that other stuff. It's that commissarina out there with their measuring tape saying this family's got too much. They can't have this. It's wrong. We got to take it away from them. That's what I see this as. I don't know, Cliff, you remember the movie? Remember that scene?
Yeah, I do. It's all going to be, like you said, the Marxist playbook and, redistribution, right? So you get too much. We have to give this away to somebody else. And just to, really decapitate capitalism, really, and move towards socialism or communism. That's the marching orders.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've been thinking, when do I use that scene? But movies can be a reflection of what goes on in life.
Culture,
right?
Yeah.
All right. So today's movie is a pretty funny movie, and I'm
yes.
glad that I got you guys on here. And so let me introduce the movie, and then we'll get into discussion about it. It's The Guard. It was released in 2011. They call it a cop buddy film, and yeah, I think that's kind of true. And directed by John McDonagh and starring Brendan Gleeson and John Cheadle. Is that how you say that name?
John Cheadle.
John Cheadle, yeah.
Cheadle and Don Strong and Liam Cunningham. Now, I had seen this movie before, and I go, I kind of want to do something that's a little light, although this is a dark comedy, and fun. And I thought this was hilarious. So a funny movie. It's Ireland, so it's kind of a foreign film, but it's got American nexus because Don plays an FBI agent that is, they're trying to disrupt some drug traffickers in Ireland, some common criminals, I guess. So what'd you think of the movie, Cliff? Fun?
Yeah, my buddy last past summer, this was my second time. He turned me on to this. You got to watch The Guard, And I looked at the first couple of minutes. I'm going, I'm not going to like this. And then, man, I just loved it. I ended up loving this film and the interaction and the connection between, just between him and Don Cheadle, that character. You think they're never going to bond or have anything in common, and then it turns out to be just the opposite. And I always got a Columbo feel to him, although a little bit of less moral character. But, he's a flawed individual, but, kind of a stupid genius, right?
Yeah. Well, it's there's some funny parts in this because, the uncomfortable comedic stuff that he says, which I'm going to get into with Cliff. I got to do that. But
you have to, yeah. It was great.
It's the cringe funny, right?
Cringe funny. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cringe funny. And I'm like, ooh, when he gets to that, we'll get into those scenes. But, yeah, this is just, I was chuckling. My wife said, "What are you doing?" It's just this funny movie. I had to go back and re-listen to some of the things because of the brogues were killing me there a little bit. I don't think my hearing aid picks up all the nuances there.
Yeah.
So, Scott, what'd you think of the movie?
I was kind of like Cliff. At first, I was like, oh, okay, just a burnt. Oh, now we have the Irish version of a burned out cop, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then I just kind of picked it up, and I'm like, well, this is funny. And then I'm like, but why is he burned out? I mean, I think he was more bored than he was burned out.
That's right.
I get the sense he was probably sent there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Banished.
disruptive and banished. I think the cop who gets killed also was banished there because he was,
Yeah.
we'll talk about him in a minute too. But they were sent out in a hinterland, and suddenly the crime comes to them, and Gleason's character he sees this as an opportunity, and he's going to do it his way. Now, did your wife watch the movie with your wife again, Scott?
No, she didn't watch it this time. She was watching, I don't know, Dr. Destiny or whatever that one about the ship. Doctor, whatever that cruise doctor show or whatever.
I think this was probably a lot more fun. So
yeah.
All right. Well, what'd you think of the characters here? We got Brendan Gleeson. Now we did the show with him and oh my God, Colin Farrell and Bruges.
Yeah, in Bruges. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was good. Another good one.
That was a good one, and a lot of funny stuff that you have to go back and watch it again just because it's so hilarious. And then, and I remember Don. He's mostly from Iron Man, right? Doesn't he play the sidekick? To Iron Man. And,
yeah.
But he's in a lot of stuff. And
a lot of stuff, man. He is a lot of credits. Yeah.
And then Mark Strong, he was good. I liked him. He played, the shootout scene at the end. Okay, that's kind of comic, but it's not really a good shootout scene. But he double-handed shooting. That's like Jimmy Cagney stuff, right? But
yeah, he's been in. I don't know. It seems like every English or Irish movie Mark Strong is in it.
Well, and there's, we did talk about doing some of these English movies where it's kind of it's dark comedic kind of stuff. What was the Two Guns and Two Shotguns? Smoking Aces and a bunch of different ones. And this is kind of in that vein, although it's a little different, right? Because there's not as much violence. It's more just the interplay between Brendan and Don that is the most entertaining. I think there's some funny scenes. Let's show the first scene here, and this is just Brendan Gleeson and the guard. Now I've been to Ireland, and I never really quite understood the name. And here's our rogue. I don't think he's more of a ruffian kind of, because he, ultimately, although he seems snorting cocaine and other stuff, and I think it's just the scene where the kids are driving past and he rolls up on them. Doesn't try to stop them, and he knows what's going to happen. He says, oh, there they go, let me just go see where they crash.
I'll listen for it.
Yeah.
Doesn't try to stop them. Why, and then of course he finds some stuff in their pockets, and then he uses it, and that's the first indicator. I mean, one indicates he's burned out. Well, I'm not going to try and stop him. I'm just going to kind of, and then the other one is okay. He's off the reservation because he's taken.
Yeah,
he dropped acid, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. He zipped by and he just then he hears a crash and pulls out.
And here he's looking, oh, hey, look I found something fun here.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to take it.
and I'm going to, hey, this is a little bored in this Irish town. Now, this is the west coast of Ireland, I believe is where this is happening. And I don't know. I've been to Ireland, been on the west side, been in Galway. It's beautiful. They call it the Wild West just because the sea's kind of wild, but it's beautiful country.
Yeah, we were there in Camara, where he was at in this movie. We went through there when we went to Galway. It's north of Galway, I think.
Yeah, I love Galway. I like Dublin and every place I visited, but if I had to say you only got one place to go back to, I'd probably go back to Galway because it's a fun town, right?
Yeah. Really
so
cool,
I have to do a plug for Sean's Bar. So Sean's Bar, Sean, is halfway between Galway and Dublin, and it opened up in 900 AD. It's the oldest continuing operating pub, they believe, in Europe, but certainly for Ireland. And had to stop by there. And they actually have a part where you can actually see the thatched wall. That was the initial wall for it, and they built that. And it's actually it's like a little fireplace area. And if you think of it, way back, the bars are only going to probably maybe seat about 10 people, and they would have a bar there to keep people warm as they're serving drinks. And then, of course, they had a big extension on in the back. And they do the whole cop patch thing,
Yeah.
And sure enough, I found the LA County Sheriff's patch was there. So somebody had beat me to it. Not surprising. It's a pub. I'm sure somebody from the Sheriff's Department found that pub. But yeah,
oh,
it was
nobody
kind
drinks on the Sheriff's Department, Pat.
No way.
I was I was when I was in Nashville, there's a pub called the Redneck Review or Revival, the Redneck Revival, right on Broadway there. And I was telling Scott Cliff that I went there and I drank more beer in 3 days than I drink in a whole year with my house.
Oh my God.
And it was brutal on me because they can put them away and I can't, so I had to slow down. I had to slow down just to survive. But we go there and they have all these patches on the walls and they give a portion of their profits to sling police officer stuff. And I got their cards. I'm going to bring on my other show eventually. But so I found they had a couple patches. I found the Sheriff's Department patch in a prominent place right above, talking about the story of why they have all the patches on the wall to honor the men and women of the military and the police and fire services and EMS. So for all that they do, which is not something that's been going on a lot for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
They do it there. So, but yeah, so Sean's Bar, 900 AD. So we got this part of the scene. We see Brendan and the new guy, I guess, and they found they got a murder victim. And of course, you also find out, you see how rogue this guy is because he immediately starts interfering with the crime scene, right?
Yeah.
he doesn't care.
There's
and the new guy from Dublin's like, who is this?
Yeah.
Who's this guy?
And he's the supervisor.
You're right.
Yeah.
So here's our bad guy who's been shot in the head. And he's had a part of the Bible stuffed in his mouth. Probably definitely more of a misdirection on who killed him and why he killed him. And he takes it out and then he crumples it up and throws it aside. It's just crazy. So it's for me. It's like I can't believe there's no way the guard does this, right? And that's the other part. I never quite understood why do they. I think the police, because of the Troubles, I think they had the Royal Constabulary Police, as part of the Northern Ireland and all that other stuff. And so maybe they selected the name Guard because they don't want police. I'd have to look that one up. That was my guess. But this is an area that is part of the Republic of Ireland. So you've been there, Scott. Beautiful country, right?
Oh, beautiful country. Beautiful. We enjoyed it. And it's like, and then we went to Northern Ireland, and it's a completely different scene out there. It's still a beautiful area. There's still a lot of tension there. If you've never been there, the Brits live inside walls. It's. Then we had a taxi cab driver in Northern Ireland.
Oh, did you?
Were you part of the Troubles? Oh, I no, I wasn't part of the Troubles, but I did go to prison. I go, why'd you go to prison? Oh, I don't know.
But nobody, because they there definitely snitches got stitches, right? That's they kneecapped you and killed you, right? So here, this guy is, it's funny how they're, 5.5. They're doing this stuff just to throw these guys off, is what you find later, right? And the young guy is, he's, why are you doing this? He's challenging Gleeson. Gleason's just kind of blowing him off, And the whole discussion about 5.5. Well, there's a movie out, 9.5. Maybe it's related to that. Maybe they've killed 5 and only wounded 1. And I'm thinking to myself, what? But this is so Cliff, you're a comedian, right? So that's so setting this stuff up. I mean, it actually sounds stupid what they're saying, and then but it is funny as he's going through this. The one guy doing this, the other guy challenged him. Oh, shut up, and just minimizing him. And then this whole discussion about 5. It just sounds dumb.
Yeah.
But that's so. How do you get into that comedic kind of timing? I guess I don't know. And
That's part of comedy is you're kind of, how the traditional, you're pulling the rug out, you're thinking a way a conversation is going to go, and it's something totally flipped and to the shocking point, and that kind of triggers laughter, and that's kind of what they're doing here with this kind of the way he talks. Yeah.
No, maybe they only killed 5 and they just wounded 1. That's why it's 5.5. I'm like, what?
What? This is crazy.
Well, when he says, when he takes the plant off the guy, and the young guy goes, "Oh, maybe the genus of the plant has something to do with it." He goes, "Genus, ooh, fancy."
Yeah.
But this is just the beginning, right? So it's just you're thinking, okay, this is, and it's kind of stupid funny, right?
Stupid funny, yeah, stupid funny.
It's stupid funny, right? Well, hey, let's roll the next scene, and this is he gets it. So this guy's kind of a rogue guy, and you can see this, and they do talk about him being part of the occult. And it's funny. Here's one of the other things. He says, "Did you check the place for money?" So
yeah,
he's gonna rip him off. Well, he doesn't need it. He's dead,
Yeah, it makes sense.
And he's. I think part of this is he does eventually. They do show a part with his mother too, and so here's this rogue cop, and he's got this kind of soft hearts for his mom, but his mom is also. Here's his mom. She's he's in her home, and he brings her a bottle of whiskey, a whiskey, so she can have a drink. But she's a great actress too, and I've seen her in a lot of things. But she does a good job in there. I think she got some accolades for her role in this, and it's Finola Flanagan. And I had to read up on her. She got into the theater, but she got into the theater and that spoke only Gaelic, because there was a big issue back in Ireland when they broke away from England to embrace their cultural roots. But her to break into theater, she had to do Gaelic theater first, so she had to learn Gaelic. She didn't know it. She's Irish by ancestry, but she didn't know the lingo, so she had to learn it, and that's how she got into it. But we've seen a lot of stuff, and but here's our rogue cop who's got a soft spot for his mom, as they say. So Scott, have you seen her before in a movie, Scott? Do you know who I'm talking about?
I didn't recognize her. I didn't recognize it. I recognized Brendan Gleeson. I recognized Mark Strong, but the rest of them.
Let me see if let me bring her filmology up here. Maybe we'll. I'm trying to think. She's Youngblood, PFK, Final Verdict, and she was Mad on the Moon, Money. I'm trying to think of ones where. Some Mother Son, Walking Dead. So a lot of these are The Secret Affair. A lot of these are English or productions. But I'm looking at something that's A Christmas Carol. So she was in A Christmas Carol. Yes, Man. So I know I've seen her in stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, so she's a pretty good character actress. And she's done a lot of television as well. So I want to say, who's the one where what's his name plays the Irish gypsy? Oh God, he played in. I'm thinking now. He played in Heat. He played in. But he kind of plays the rogue Irish gypsy guy, and this lady plays his mom in that movie. So I've seen her before, and she's a good actress. But it humanizes our sergeant here, that he isn't just a rogue. He does love his mom, and he takes his mom seriously, and she's in assisted living. So here we go. The murder is he's John Doe, isn't he? So yeah, they don't know who this guy is yet. I have to remember the scene. So Cliff, the relationship with the mom, what'd you think? Because it goes throughout.
Yeah, I like it. Like you said, humanizes him. I guess the movie's great because it kind of goes along the way a good story should be told. And so if he's considered a lot of times the bad guy, they call it, they want a pet the dog moment. And so right. This is his pet the dog moment. Otherwise, he's kind of got a heart. He's got a different side to him. And then it kind of ingratiates him now to the people who are watching. So it's kind of a classic in the storytelling. And so I think that's what that's about. And it works.
So it gives them something to love our rogue.
Right,
fellow,
exactly.
right?
Find a reason. How can we
Love our
connect with this guy?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so now we do talk about he's got to go get a briefing from the FBI, Gleeson. So he's actually we got to talk about it. He's the sergeant, right?
Yeah.
And of course he's making fun of it. Oh yeah, it's another sighting of Whitey Bulger at some effing museum, right? There's still the FBI is still chasing Whitey Bulger, right? It's got to be in Ireland, right? And it's funny. You have to go back and listen to him to catch
Yeah.
these lines, and they're funny. They're hilarious, and
he's in a pub. He's in a pub playing a video game, drinking beer.
I know,
Yeah.
on duty. Which I can see that in those small towns there, right?
Yeah, I can see
Go
that.
in
Yeah.
and, would you want a pint?
And I went on a ride along with my wife's cousins, and her uncle was a homicide detective in Chicago for a long time. And my mom had told me this when she went to Philadelphia, that they went in to have lunch and there was two cops sitting there drinking beer. This is like in the 80s. And she's like, "Can you guys drink on duty?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're allowed to have 2 beers while we're working." And then I went with Chicago and they're drinking beer when we went to lunch. And I'm like, "You guys drinking beer on duty?" "Oh yeah, we can have a beer with lunch. You can have 1 beer in your shift." They have since gotten rid of it, but it's like, what? You guys do a lot of things different than we do.
When I first started working DB, when would that have been? It had been I guess it would have been 89 at West Hollywood. There was talk where there used to be some alcohol at lunch with these guys. So they wouldn't necessarily drink all day, but they would have a drink at lunch. And of course that changed, by the time I got on, that wasn't tolerated. So I have a feeling there was some holdover from that in our days. LA Sheriff, LAPD, they kind of went through this whole transition away from that Eastern style policing and Midwest style policing to a much more professional militaristic kind of policing under Parker and Sheriff Biscalou, right? So there was a transition period. That's in my mind. That's and because I grew up in Detroit, and I went back for an event in my family, and went to a cop party, and there's people shooting dice and drinking and strippers, and I'm like, oh my god, I
want to party with you guys.
Says this would not fly. Ooh, way different, and there were command people around, and I'm like, all right, this is kind of odd. So, so there, different cultures for different police, right? But this is small town policing for Ireland, right? This is
right.
There's probably only 2 cops in the town, the sergeant and the guy who gets killed, and then whenever something happens, they bring in everybody else. Which is that kind of, you get in these small towns too. We don't need the guys from downtown. We can handle it, right? That even happens on the sheriff's force. Now we don't need those guys. They're just going to mess things up. I can remember thinking that. I was having some pattern robberies on the transit system, and the guys from downtown. "Oh yeah, you got money? Oh, well, give us overtime. We'll come down and work it." And I said, "No, I'd rather pay my guys overtime because they know all the crooks. They're gonna solve this before you guys solve this, right? Because they're on the lines every day, And that's the way I handled it. Kind of pissed them off. I said, "That's okay. We'll take care of it." But
that's what Tennessee. Here in Tennessee, the small departments, they always bring in the TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, because they.
I think for homicides and things like that, I'm good with that, right? Because that's, good morning, hey, Janet. Janet from another planet. Okay.
Hey, Janet.
Hey, Janet from another planet. Good morning. This is the chief coming at you with Cliff and Scott, and we're reviewing the movie The Guard. All right, so we got to do the briefing one, and this is I think I wrote this one as a smart ass because he is a smart ass, and I think one of the funniest scenes is when he's at this briefing, because it's the cringe funny, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead and roll the scene, Martine, and so he's getting a briefing of they're getting a briefing of $500 million, which is also funny, right? $500 million. And they're showing the pictures of the bad guys who are smuggling the $5 million in, right? And so they got everybody from probably around the West Coast of Ireland at this briefing. You got the bigwigs there. And it's funny how the FBI guy's trying to give the presentation, and the head guy's got to butt in with something that was stupid, 500 million, he's got us in cocaine, right? And so here's our guy, and I just love it. And he says, I thought the drug dealers are all just black people. and that is the cringe funny one, because here's our FBI agent is black, and our lead guy from the Guard who's standing up there with them is like, oh God, can you shut that guy up? And that's the cringe funny part of this. And you can feel it as an audience. You go, ooh. And then you just see he continues with it. Well, yeah.
And then when he first raises his hand, you can see the superintendent and everybody else going, "Oh God, here it comes."
Well, either blacks or Mexicans, yeah, and he just keeps doubling down on it. The guys around him like, okay, I really don't want to be. So, all right, I had to ask. So, cringe funny, Cliff. This is one of those things that stand-up comics and that people do that all the time. Make people uncomfortable, stay there ridiculous, and make them laugh, right? And that's what we see going on in the film, right? And he pulls it off great.
Well, and it would be funny enough that what he's saying and the where he's saying it, but to see Cheadle's reaction, like what? I mean, that just adds to it. Just the turn of the head, and you can see in his eyes, like, what did you? It's just awesome.
I love what he says. Racism is part of my culture, and I'm Irish.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, he says, "Are you going to apologize?" He says, "Apologize for what?"
Well, this is our culture. Yeah, that was amazing. Oh my God.
And you see all of them looking at him, right? Oh God, and I think. Don says, "Well, if we were in Atlanta, you would." And no, we're not in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But he's trying for. Wait a minute, drug mules. Yeah, that's the word, drug mules.
I thought this was
one of the best scenes. Yeah,
one of the best scenes because he just does it with a straight face. I'm only having a bit of fun, And then he gets in the whole. He does say, I wrote this quite down. I'm Irish. It's okay. Part of my culture.
Racism's part of our culture.
Part of my culture.
Yeah.
So, and then he gets into the five, because his boss emphasized $500 million. Well, that's the retail value. It's not really worth that. Maybe it's $10 million. It's not really $500 million. And just to undercut it because he's making a big deal out of it, and Gleeson says, "Come on, come on." Yeah. And
you wonder what street you're buying your cocaine.
Yeah, I don't know what street. Yes.
You guys always over exaggerate, which I totally get what he's saying.
Yeah.
Always announce, the street value is $500 million. Well, yeah, but the actual cost they're buying it for is like $1 million.
And this is where I think Don is probably thinking, is this guy stupid or is he really smart? And we hear that comment later on, but he's saying things that people, they instinctively know. He knows that they're building this up for media purposes. This is a career case, allegedly a career case, because later on we think, everybody's kind of corrupt is what you come away with. And, but he's just saying it out loud, and he's not afraid. What are you going to do? Banish me? You've already banished me to some little village in Ireland. Right. What are you going to do? And we've seen guys like that. Well, you guys probably at Super School, right? I mean, they're promoting me, really, me, and had fun at Super School, right? Just calling all the this is the way we want you to act, and this is, and of course during the scene, he lays the bomb on him. Well, the fourth guy there, I can't remember exactly what he said. We already know where he's at. Well, where's he at? Well, he's whatever. He's in the morgue. He's dead. And then just when he flicks his toe too, and then smells his hand, it's like, and he does it in front of them, and he knows something they don't know. They need to know this, and he tells it to them in a shocking way, and then he acts in a shocking way.
I hope he's dead because I put him in the morgue.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How do you know he's dead? Well, I hope he's dead because I put him in the morgue. Yeah, and then we switch to it starts switching to the bad guys too. Well, let's say I got some notes here. I don't know what. Let's see, drinking. Oh, you know what? I noticed. He's drinking Corona in Ireland. Did you notice that one of the beers he's drinking is Corona? Nah, I would think that's a mortal sin, but
you would think, yeah.
So because I would think it would be either Guinness or some other local.
Maybe it was product
brand.
placement.
Yeah, well, yeah, product.
Maybe Corona paid for that.
Yeah.
Oh, Janet from the Planet is a friend of Gary's. Well, welcome to us. I don't think you've ever been on this one, so hello. Anyway, so we're doing the movie, like I said, The Guard. But that's the cringe funny, Cliff. That
yeah.
And you can see a good comedian, stand-up comic. They'll do that cringe one, and everybody gets quiet.
Yeah.
And then he continues down the path, and everybody starts laughing, right? And I think Dave Chappelle does this a little bit. I mean, you'll see the really good ones, and they do it, and they pull it off well, right?
Well, yeah, because if they're doing it well, they're actually saying what everybody else is thinking and not saying. So then people connect with that. Oh man, I was thinking the same thing. And that also triggers laughter. Yeah, so that's part of what they're using.
Okay to laugh, but that's the whole cancel culture stuff, Scott, right? So
yeah,
you do that, and suddenly, oh my God, everybody's offended, and and you can't say anything, right? And just because everybody's offended.
Well, Pat, you guys know me. I don't care.
Yeah, but you don't make your money doing stand-up, right?
That's true.
And you don't care. That's why you moved parts unknown, right?
Somebody once said, "How can you say that?" I was like, "How can you not?
How can you not say it?" That's right.
Yeah. So I've been on Twitter now since I retired and making commentary. And when I was first on, this is before Elon, I would regularly get attacked, right? And you're part of that gang. I'd get all this stuff, right? And then eventually it went away after Elon bought it, right? It went away for a long time. It calmed down. I didn't have these attacks. And after Trump won, it's back. I've been posting now, and I get these regular attacks on me. And, I come with receipts,
Yeah, exactly.
The tax forms say, like the one you heard me say, $7 million, and I spent like $8 million in, salaries. And I said, is this really grassroots, or are these just all paid, right? Which is a legitimate criticism taken right off tax returns. Oh, you're lying, you're this, you're just that, and then they'll do some meme where I'm, sucking up to Trump or something like that, and it's and they're back, which tells me the money's behind it. So the cancel culture is still there, and I'm sure if there's comedians out there making fun of the left, that they get this attacks too, and all. The left is pushing for, and it's crazy what's going on. I can imagine Brendan Gleeson talking about this guy that was pushed down, or this character talk about the guy that was sent down to El Salvador. Well, didn't he beat his wife? Yeah, he beat his wife, right? The same kind of stuff. And you can't even talk. Well, no, it's due process. Well, he beat his wife. Do we really want this guy here after he beat his wife twice? It's due process. Well, he was, self-identified as a.
I got a question though. If you're an illegal alien in the United States of America, you came over illegally, you broke the law there, then you're here breaking the law. You're not a citizen of this country. What due process are you supposed to get?
Yeah.
Well, they want due process, a 30 day, hearing. They just want to slow it down
because he's just this poor guy that.
They just had some information for that guy where the Tennessee Highway Patrol pulled him over.
Yep.
He had like six people.
Seven people, and he was trafficking. Yeah, for sure.
Trafficking them, and they took the information, gave it to the FBI. So all this stuff is starting to come out. But I have to say, on that one, Bukele could have been a writer for this show, right? So
I love that guy.
Any senator comes down and to meet with this guy, and he makes sure the guy's all dressed up in his gang garb.
Yeah,
and sits him down and serves him up margaritas.
Yeah.
But now that same politician's like, I didn't drink any of it. It was put
I
there.
didn't drink any.
Yeah, I didn't. Shut up.
That was a setup, yeah, and it was perfect because that visual will be remembered by everybody. Yeah, you
Yeah.
sat down, and it was a lovely conversation over some drinks. At
Yeah.
a 5-star hotel. So Kelly played those guys.
He's just this poor guy that just he beats his wife, but that's okay because he got illegally deported. So
Yeah.
we're gonna put that aside. And, oh, wait a minute, he was trafficking. Well, we don't want to really report on that
We don't want
either
to talk about that
because he's just this poor guy.
So I could see our main character, talking about this. Well, he beats his wife. Do we really want him here? I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of due process do you want to have? So, anyways, it's crazy what's going on politically. Let's roll the next next scene, and it's you from the agency. This is hilarious. Unfortunately, our young cop is killed, right? He's killed by the gangsters.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that. And the gangsters have pretty funny in exchange too. And here she shows up, and he's in his underwear, and she says, "You from the agency? No, my husband is missing. Oh God, I'm sorry. Come in." So you figure out when he says you from the agency that he has regular escorts coming.
Yeah, he thinks it's the hooker. Yeah, he thinks, yeah.
And what he said after this was hilarious. Oh, and he's in his underwear, and he's got tidy whities.
Tidy whities on, yeah.
And he says, "Well, let me go put something that's a little more uncomfortable on."
Yeah,
a little more uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's just hilarious. And you had to did he say what I said? Did he say that? And he did. I thought this was funny, and of course I don't think it's not like he didn't care for the young guy. It's just the young guy wasn't his thing. And he's asking, he's asking about him. How long has he been missing? Well, he's probably out, whatever. And we all know that he's been shot, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And but he's being respectful of her, but you already know this rogue mind is going in a lot of different places. He does talk to her later. He says, "I wish I've gotten to know you a lot better." And you're thinking, well, what does he mean by that comment? And
he already didn't connect with this guy, and then he's like, he doesn't drink? What?
What's wrong with this guy?
Well, I imagine probably say, well, if he stays here long enough, he'll start drinking.
Yeah.
So, and she's from Czech Republic or something like that. So he's with this beautiful lady, and you find out later that the guy's gay, but he's with this beautiful lady.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And she's from another country, and they've been together for 3 years. But he always comes home, right? So he's pretty. Oh, she's from Romania, right, or Croatia, and. But I just thought that scene, that was another really funny scene. Oh,
yeah, hilarious.
You know exactly what he's talking about, and I just started laughing. And then the follow-up comment, well, let me go put something a little less comfortable on. When he's in his underwear. I thought those were just funny stuff. So what'd you think about the scene there, Cliff?
Yeah, and like you said, you have to... really pay attention. Every word is a gem out of this guy. All the way it's written is just, you got to pay attention because there's no superfluous words that he says. Everything kind of means something or is funny. I mean, it's just hilarious.
Just put out an APB. He'd ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Do you?
What do they call that thing? The whole time you're like, he's trying to hit on her.
Oh, I know. He wants to, and so because that's the rogue in him. But he goes, all right, maybe that's even too much.
Maybe I should, for me, exactly. Yeah,
that's going over the line here a little bit.
And I thought this scene was pretty funny too. So we got Don. He's out running on the beach, and that doesn't look like it's a comfortable beach to run on. Too many rocks.
No.
Hey, they got movies got to make it work. And he's seeing this guy. Now you have to understand. The Irish Sea or the water right there, that is freezing. It is the Atlantic. Yeah. You end up in that without a wetsuit, and you're dead within a couple minutes, right? You just freeze, right? And so you very short period of time to save people once the ship goes down, right? And here he sees this guy coming out of the water, and he sees that it's our rogue police sergeant, and he's stunned. No way, no way. This guy he's
Yeah.
out swimming. No way. And they later have a conversation. He talks about, oh yeah, I was fourth in Olympic. He's going, no way. This guy's just pulling
Yeah.
my leg, and they all believe it in the town. And you come away later on thinking, yeah, maybe he was,
Yeah.
but
Well, then the one photographer is like, that's pretty easy to check on.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, it is.
He was saying
Nowadays,
it's pretty easy to check on.
Yeah, it's easy to check on, but there's no way he was going to believe him. And they do get in a conversation. Well, and they end up having a beer, right? And they're talking about, well, you were a Rhodes Scholar. Do you know what a Rhodes Scholar is? And it's like, so Don is pushing, Gleeson, Brendan, well, you're just a dumb, you don't know any of this stuff. Of course he knows what it is, right? He knows what a Rhodes Scholar is. And, and they have this interplay, and he also says something else as they engage. And I don't, obviously I didn't, do every scene. He goes, do black people ski? Because he talks about, oh yeah, I've been all over the place, and you ski? I didn't know that. Same kind of cringe. And it's like Don just kind of like, this guy knows the area. I got to work with this idiot. I just got to tolerate this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And as to what he's doing, and he see, it's like, it's like the guy from downtown, and they come, well, Scott, you were common. They come and they okay, I may be homicide, or I may be something else, but I got to talk to the guys who work every day because they know everybody.
Yeah,
Right?
That's the attitude he has. Yeah.
And so they came to you because you were the gang guy. You knew who all the players were, and of course they treated you with respect. A little different relationship, probably some jovial, fun stuff, but it was all well-meaning in comparison to. Although I think, Sergeant Boyle, his was all well-meaning. He's just having fun with these guys, right?
Yeah.
And they're just not used to that. They're used to, well, the FBI, everybody gets kind of stiffened up, right? And same with. You see that when homicide rolls in, the new guys who don't have as much relationship, again, I get all stiffened up, but you have a relationship with them, and you're a little more jovial with them, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I knew a lot of those guys because a lot of them came from, the gang investigators. So guys I worked with at one time, and they'd have somebody new that, came from, maybe Lancaster BB or whatever. So now they're got catch a murder in the middle of Compton, and of course, they come down there and they want to act. And the Cliff's you've had the same thing,
Yeah.
And you're like looking at him like, should I mess with this guy or should I just?
Well, they've arrived. It happens as you go up the ranks too, right? You become an executive, and guys that they want to mess with you a little bit. Now, most of the guys who did that with me, they did it in a way that was not disrespectful, right? They were always,
right.
It was in the executive office area or wherever, right? But you show up in suit, everybody, it's really the people who were the funniest to do it to were the ones who were saw themselves as being really important. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They lack humility. I always, I started as a street cop. I grew up blue collar. Whatever. See, this is like Mississippi Burning, where it is. Thank you, Sander. It is. Mississippi Burning. The thing about that is Gene Hackman. I think he got some awards for that. I can't remember. If you guys remember correctly, he was an FBI agent, but he had been a local Southern cop too.
Yeah.
And he goes down there, and he's so this is Mississippi Burning is about the 3 civil rights workers that disappeared. One black guy, 2 Jewish guys, and the local police were the KKK and the local police in that area were responsible for it, and they send the FBI in I think it was Kennedy sent the FBI in, and they sent a guy like Gene Hackman who knew the lay of the land, but didn't have any problem turning up the heat on these guys. And they solved it. The FBI did actually get a good informant, and they figured out where he was at. And but that's a true life story. And you need those guys. You need those guys that know the lay of the land. You need the Brendan Gleesons of the world, and in this character to help solve these crimes. And we do see the thing about you got to respect the homicide guy or the executive. It is for a comedic thing, it's taken to a higher level here, right? Where the executive is so offended, right? And the FBI guy is so offended. But in reality, in real life, it's like, Scott could just shut up. Just wait till we're closed doors,
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? There's the guys who are common sense guys are, Scott, please.
Pat, were you there when the FBI showed up because they were working some kidnapping case and they had all the trailers and the antennas all over the parking lot?
Where was this one at?
In Carson.
I don't think so. No.
So I rolled into work and they go, hey, you got to go down and talk to the FBI. And they've like taken over the station on this multi-state kidnapping thing with the cartels and all this. So I go down there and I'm talking to the agents and they give me an address and they're like, yeah, we think they got the victim in this gang house. And I'm like, that's not a gang house. And they're like, oh, yes, it is. We've driven by there, blah, 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 blah. So then I go out on patrol and they're like, just go by there and act natural. I kid you not. That's what he said. Act natural. So I go up there and behind the First Interstate Bank, there's like a row of FBI cars and there's guys standing outside that. So I go up to the 7-Eleven to get my drink. And one of the gang members I know says, hey, what are all those FBI's doing behind the bank? So I go back to the station. I go, hey, Mr. FBI guy, all your guys are right there in the neighborhood. Sitting all the crooks are telling me that there's FBI's at the bank. They want to know what's going on. Next thing you know, all the FBI cars.
That's hey, that's a good story because it does relate to what's going on here today.
Well, then they blew up the house with their SRT or their hostage rescue team. I told them that wasn't a gang house. It was two old people. I'm like, okay. Just brush them off, send them on their way.
Should have listened to Carson's version of Brendan Gleeson, right? Okay, we are halfway through the show here. It is time for our mid-show break. Isn't Mark Strong in the movie? He is in the movie. He's in the movie. We'll get into him a little bit. He's in the movie. But are we ready for our mid-show breaks there, Martine?
Yes. Give me a second and we'll be.
All right. We got 2 minutes, gentlemen. If you need to take a break, now's the time.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Where they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Where they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, Jog on then.
We are back with Morning Coffee with the Chief, and we are reviewing the movie The Guard. I think we lost Cliff. Hopefully he'll chime back in there. Let's see here. And we are, let's see. So I just want to remind folks, you can catch us every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube's Pop Culture Minefield, and you can find us on Rumble, their Facebook page, and their Twitter feed. Let's see. Hopefully jump back on there, Cliff. Let's see if I can send him a message.
He's here.
Right here.
There we go. All right. Okay, well, I got to catch up some speed here because we've been having way too much fun here. And I have to remind folks, I can't go wrong with Mark Strong. The guy is in so many things and a very versatile actor, very underappreciated. Well, he was actually, I wouldn't say his movie, his spot in this movie was made the show. This was definitely a Gleeson who made this movie, but we can't do it justice on the review. You got to watch this movie. It's hilarious. Let's go to Day Off, because this is the scene. So Don, our FBI agent, Everett, is going to the town where Gleeson is, Boyle is the boss, and he wants him to help him knock on doors and do whatever. And he says, "Oh, it's my day off." And this is the day that the agency comes to town, right?
Yeah.
And so you see these two gals dressed as cops who get off the train, and where Boyle is the sergeant, and he's all dressed up. He's like, "This is my date," right? So this is, I thought this was pretty funny, right?
Yeah, it was hilarious. Oh my God.
So our FBI agent's like, "Well, we got a murder, we got $500 million. Well, it's my day off. It's my day off. I can't do that, right?" And then it's the agency day.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, if you didn't catch the "Are you from the agency?" you definitely figured it out.
Now, yeah,
in the movie, right? And then the other part is our FBI agent Everett. He's going to go and try and talk to everybody. And I love this kid on the bike because
he was great.
The kid and he's got the bike is pink, so it's a girl's bike, and it's a boy on it. And ultimately you figure out, like in every, you hit up the kids, they know what's going on, right? They're some of the best informants. And of course he does. And he's got training wheels on, which is, pretty fun.
And his dog.
His dog, right? So, I mean, just all these little added things on that make it kind of funny and silly, right? That's comedy, though, right, Cliff? That's
right. Yeah, that's.
And so here's our ladies. They're coming to show the sergeant a good time that he paid for. It is agency day. It is his day off. And I just thought it was a funny scene because it really tells you who Brendan is. He is a rogue, and he's going to have fun. He can't just have one girl. He's got to have two girls.
Yeah,
and then he asks them to dress as cops, right?
Yeah.
And he's walking through the middle of town with them. Everybody knows what he's doing. And he doesn't care. And you know what? They've come to accept their lovable rogue of
that's right.
That's kind of how I see it. Hey, how you guys, Gambit? How you doing? Welcome to the show. So what'd you think of this, right? This is agency day, Cliff, and he's having a good time. He's bow tie, all dressed up,
He is enjoying his time off.
And he doesn't care who sees it.
No, he's not hiding this. No, this is who I am, and
very small person, very small penis.
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious. Oh my God.
Sergeant. And I just love this as he tries to talk to these guys, they just kind of ignore him, right? He's going to go try and sir. But when he ends up at one house where only the horse pays attention to him and he gives him some food, but only at the one house he ends, they only speak Gaelic, right? Or they only are speaking Gaelic to him.
Right. I think later he says everybody speaks English. There was
because they don't want to talk to him. I'm not talking to you, but part of this is the troubles, right? One, he's not from there, right? He's an American.
Yeah.
Who, as they said, all Irish are racist, which is not true, but that comes out. That's kind of implied. But hey, we gotta recognize that they were kind of anti-cop because of the whole troubles and the sectarian strife and the Civil War and talking to the cops. Didn't always go well for the people talking to the cops. So they don't talk to the cops, right?
Mm-mm.
And I just love this. He's all finished with them, and I brought my handcuffs. So, well, there's always next time. And he says, I'm all out of. I won't say what he said, but they worked him pretty good. So
yeah, he was drained.
He was drained. I got no more from you, and he's wearing this green robe, right? It's like big smile on his face. Hey, you were worth every penny, right? And so I just thought it was funny. And he's driving home from his date, right? And he sees his partner's car. Basically, he sees the car.
Yeah,
the body's not in it, and he checks it out because he is a cop at heart. He may be a rogue cop, but he is a cop at heart. And this is one of his brothers. Even if he didn't like him, he likes his wife, and he starts doing his job right. He doesn't want his life to be interrupted with this, but he's got to do it. Yeah. I guess this is like a lover's lane point too, and so they parked it in a particular place to give it a different. And they talk about it. Well, was he meeting a rent-a-boy here? And this is where I think she tells him he was gay. And no, I don't think that's what was going on. And but funny scene though, right? Scott, so he goes from being this rogue guy, and now he's switching to what he, doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think this was a turning point when I think he realizes that he didn't commit suicide. Something's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to figure it out. And he's going to figure it out his way, and it's his town, and he's going to do it. He's going to get the guy, whether he liked the guy or not. You did this in my town, and they do say that a little bit later because they try to bribe him. He's unpredictable. We don't know what to expect from him, right?
Right.
And but he's already making his decision. Yeah, I'm going to find this guy. Maybe I'll end up with her too, but I'm going to find this guy first. And because he's rogue. The first thing you're thinking, okay, he's just trying to get with her, but that's not really the case, right? And there's based on the character arc here, there is a reason to think that that's exactly what he's trying to do. Yeah, Brendan Gleeson does have an interesting expression. He does a lot of the comedy is just how he looks at you, right? Just his funny expressions and stuff, which is a big part of comedy, right, Cliff?
Yeah. You kind of made reference to the ending where Cheadle goes, I don't know if you're really dumb or really smart, and he gives that smile back to him.
Oh, you might be figuring something out, right?
Yeah, that was so funny. Oh my God.
Well, that's where Don Cheadle realizes that this guy's been messing with me the whole time.
He's been playing me the whole time. Yeah.
Well, they end up in a pub together, right? He's done with his date. He's thinking about what happened to the other guard, and Don or Everett, FBI agent Everett, is in the bar too, and they're having a few drinks. And he says, I couldn't get anybody to talk. Did you guys catch the line that Gleeson says? They didn't talk like in Compton?
Oh,
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I was like, that's so true.
That. And, and all of us who've worked, and I mean, I worked Compton. You guys all work Compton, It's like, to some degree, that's true.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the fact that they referenced it was
pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Pretty funny. All the way in Ireland, right? And
I know.
Western, the Galway side, So, but they were having a drinks, and I actually think in the pub scene, I didn't use it here, but that's where our FBI agent and Boyle begin to build the cop buddy relationship here.
Yeah, that's right.
all right, my day's off. I'll help you. You can't get it done without me anyways. And he's thinking, yeah, all right, maybe I need to tolerate this idiot, is what Everett's thinking. But he likes him, right? And,
Yep. Oh yeah.
And he realizes, hey, this guy's just having fun, right? I don't
Yeah.
like the way he's having fun at my expense, but he's having fun, and he does know what he's talking about. And so, this is where they begin to partner up, right? And I got this scene listed as the lead. Now, the call that came in regarding the initial homicide, they start looking at that, and they start trying to figure out, well, who called in, and what was our original victim? Where was he at? He was in a pub, and they showed the scene, and Gleeson gets the video, and they're going over it to figure out what happened. How did this happen, right? And you find out later that they thought he was an FBI informant, and that's why they killed him. But they're watching the scene, and this is where they realize who else is in the bar with the folks, and so they watch it. This is where they begin to break the case. So Gleeson or our Sergeant Boyle decides, okay, let me get my cop antenna on and start working here.
Yeah.
Over a beer, of course, half drunk, but he's still doing it. And I think this is I didn't quite get this. Was supposed to be the little guy is supposed to. I think he's supposed to be a kind of a rent-a-boy, right? He sleeps with, and they have a dispute, and they chuckle. Oh, hey, he hits him pretty good for a little guy, and knocks the guy down. And they're trying to shift it to this guy being the suspect, but in reality there were two other guys in the bar. So this is where I listed as the lead. So this is where they start to figure it out, right? And they start working as their cop buddy team, Scott, right? That's what.
Yeah. When he realizes he never considered him a partner. The other guard guy did realize he didn't commit suicide. Somebody killed him.
Yeah.
And then when they showed earlier that the guy that they found with the bullet in his head and that crime scene at the beginning was tied into these other guys. Now his cop radar's on, and now it's like, okay, I'm gonna stop messing with this guy because there could be a tie in somewhere. So I'm gonna stop messing with him and actually start helping him. So.
This is when you start seeing some of the bad guys too. So they talk about the FBI's looking at it, and they're trying to. Here's our Mark Strong, and this is one of our guests talked about him. He's in this movie, and this is where you see him, and. Yeah, at first I thought he was the guy Stanley Tucci, that actor.
Yeah, he looks like him.
He looks a little bit like him, right? And I go, is that,
Yeah.
And then I had to look at, oh no, it's different. And you can see these guys all kind of know each other, because I think this is the police commissioner, right? So, and they're talking about, okay, this is where they're talking about Sergeant Boyle being the one loose cannon here, right? And that they got to do something about him. And but some of the things said in between this scene and other things, like they said, "You're not hard to please." And did you catch what his comment was when they're having this? You're not. Well, that's what they said at the orgy, right? So you're not hard to please. That's what they said at the orgy. And I'm like, oh my God, who writes this stuff, right?
I know, yeah.
Or when he says, looks at the briefcase, he's like, is that real leather? Just he goes, no, you think I'm cheap.
Dumb
you're
stuff.
doing this payoff and you're commenting about leather on a briefcase.
Is it all there? Well, what do you mean? Of course it's all there. I mean, why would I come to a situation to pay you guys off and not have it all there? And so I don't know. I've never worked undercover. Do you ask that? Is it all there? You just assume it's there. If it's not there, you're going to take care of it later, right? And
right.
Right. But why would you ask a dumb question
Yeah.
like that? Of course it's all there, right?
Why would I show up if it wasn't all there?
So this is where you really see that the cops are corrupted, right? And all of them are, and this is maybe why, why does our Sergeant Boyle have such a, attitude towards all these guys? Because he knows, hey, these guys put on airs, but you know what? They're really corrupt. They're, you know what I mean? They don't care, right? And so you begin to see that, and it kind of sets up the path or what's coming, right? What they have to do. And of course, they're talking about what they got to do. They got information, and they're being fed information. And Brendan comes in and he says, well, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, we got to do all this." And he recognizes that it's a distraction. They're pulling these resources away from where they want to land, right? And he knows it, and that's what he's trying to tell them, right? And of course, they're not listening to him. And the FBI agent has bit in. The whole team has bit in, and kind of like your story, Scott. It's not a gang house,
Yeah, that's right.
It's not a gang house. You're telling it this isn't it. And Boyle's telling him, nope, this is wrong. Don't do this. And of course, they blow him off because he's just the dumb beat cop, which is always a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Always a mistake. Yeah. So good scene though, because it kind of lays out. Yeah, and we go back to that whole thing, and we all know, listen to if you want to find somebody, you got to talk to the local cops at work. And I'm not talking about the guys who just show up. I'm talking about the guys who are out there working the streets, right? The guys who are working every day, you got to talk to them. Even if you don't like them, they're the ones that are going to solve the problem. And you know what? You realize with good homicide guys or people who've been around the block who are coming to ask for help, they're just a visitor, but you know the lay of the land. And they come down, they humble themselves. Hey, Scott, hey, Cliff, we're looking for this guy.
Right.
He's connected with this, is what our best information. You have any ideas where we can find him, or do you think you can find us for us? And they give you a shot, right? You're either on their team with them, or they give you a shot to find him yourself. And that's the good sign of somebody who's been around the block for a long time and doesn't think too highly of himself. And I think Don actually finally gets there, right? I mean,
yeah.
You do find out that he did not grow up of any humble means. Oh, you mean you didn't grow up in the projects? No. Do you remember that scene? You didn't grow up in the projects, so he does all the stereotypes. You had a mother and father? Does all that stuff to him. And somewhere along the way, he does ask, you're not hard to please. That's what they said to me at the orgy, right? So that's, I don't know. Where do you, so, hey, when you're writing your lines, Cliff, in the past, and do you think of these things and write them down and then, okay, I got to work that into a skit?
Yeah, you sometimes do. It'd be like all three of us sitting down and talking how we are. And then, someone says a funny line, and then you can actually write that way or use it in another form. Yeah. So it just comes out of natural conversation. Yeah.
Right. So, so this writer probably heard that somewhere, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Funny, and he wrote that down. He goes, I'm going to use that sometime. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I imagine if you want to be a good writer and all that stuff, you spend your whole life writing that stuff down.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people who get awards for writing, and it's like it's the dialogue when they get the dialogue right. And I thought, well,
that's
how do you
it.
do that,
yeah.
Right. It's probably because you're writing down dialogue, or you got a really good recall and you can remember it over your life, and you just and you write it down, and then you use it later on, just like you're talking about. But that also is good for comedy, right?
That is. Yeah.
That's a good line if it's inserted somewhere else. So I don't know, what kind of small talk you're making where you come up with a line like that. You're not hard to please, but that's what they said at the orgy. I don't know what they were talking about, but it's a good line. So, all right, let's.
Or you could have thrown in there. That's what she said.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's go with the threat and see what this scene is all about. My memory is, oh, okay, yeah. So this was one of the gals who came on agency night, right? And they're trying to. This is where they decided that Boyle is a loose cannon, which he is. And I like how he says, "So who did that to you?" Well, just a fella. Well, they're not all nice fellas.
Nice fella.
Oh, that wouldn't be sure about that now. And And you also feel like, hey, this is a guy that's protective of women. He likes women. He protects women. He doesn't like what he's seeing. And he orders a couple of sodas for him. And then this is when they come in and try and they pay him off too. But they hurt somebody that he liked, right? So they found out that he had a regular gig at the agency and beat her up, sent her back to send him a message. And she does. And it's funny because So they do the flashback, so you make sure you didn't remember, right? If you didn't catch it, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
And they generally like each other, right? I mean, she likes the rogue sergeant,
Yeah.
and he likes her, and they probably knew that. She was probably a regular, and she sends the message, and ultimately he gets paid off here. I think you guys are going to sit down at the table here, but there we go, right? And we've seen him he's in some of those movies too. This guy, right?
Yeah.
He's a regular character actor in some of these movies too. So it was a setup from the start. How do you work with that? And so I like this scene because it personalizes Sergeant Boyle, right?
Yeah.
He's a good guy. That pisses him off. They know deep down he's a good guy, and that's why they did it to her. And now they're going to try and pay him off, right? So what'd you think, Scott? This does humanize our guy. He is a cop deep down, and he doesn't like people getting bullied. He doesn't like people hurting people that he cares about, right?
Yeah, he liked the gal, and then he said, so it was a setup, and she's like, no, it wasn't. And then he says, no, I heard about a cop that liked whores in Galway. So you could tell that he had her beaten up to get the camera or get the pictures from her. So
yeah,
that's when he's like, But I love how he gives him the money, but he never says he never says that he's gonna look the other way. He just takes the money.
Yeah. Hey, Sandra, again, it's, and you're right. And he's already working out his mind, because they do say in this thing, hey, Boyle, these aren't just men. These are men behind men, meaning this is a bigger organization. So you may be able to take down the immediate men, but there are other people who are going to come. And it kind of sets up the ending, right? How he has to ultimately disappear. So
there's your Corona beer right there again.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, see, I'm telling you, that's
there it is.
There it is. Yeah. So and they got, what do they call it? Placement marketing, is
product placement?
Yeah, product placement.
Yeah. So I just thought that was odd. Okay, so. But yeah, and this is with his partner too that was killed. Okay, I don't like that. I may be a rogue cop. I may be able to put up some vice stuff. I might be able to ignore some things here and there, but I don't like this. And he doesn't like him beating up this gal that he likes.
No.
And he doesn't like being bribed and pushed. And they know he's a loose cannon. They know it. And we see that this offering, they don't believe it's going to work either, because they do end up showing up at his place. But yeah, so I don't know. What'd you think of this scene, Cliff? Kind of lays out, broadens his character, right?
Yeah, broadens his character, kind of sets up for the ending, climactic scene, and it really kind of, is a motivation for him. And now he's, driven to really get down to police work now. Yeah.
All right, gotta ask you about that scene there, Scott. So he's kind of laying out the land. There's men behind the men. And
Brendan Gleeson he's just slurping down that milkshake like
he's slurping down the glass with the mustache, making noise, and our little gal from the agency just kind of smiles, because she knows that's his way of saying F
you.
Yeah,
exactly. I was just gonna say that. That's his way of saying F you. It's like this guy. He's just letting this guy go on, and he's sucking that milkshake.
Why didn't
the guy's just spewing shit?
Why?
So now Brendan Gleeson knows that he's paid off all the cops along the coast, because he admits it. And then he says there's more people behind me. He's basically spilling the beans, and he's just sucking down that shake. I thought it was hilarious, because it was like a huge F you. But I love at the end when he's like, oh, that shake gave me a
the milkshake out.
Yeah.
Did you see what the guy said when he walks away? See you later, amigos.
Amigos,
Probably a throw to the Corona beer.
Corona,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was funny too, where the guy's serious. There's men behind men, and he's sucking on his milkshake, making noise. Like, yeah, F you,
And then when the bad guy says, he says, well, he said after he says he's bribed everybody, basically all the other guardian, and then he says, well, what about Everett, the FBI guy? And he goes, no, you know, Americans and their effing ideals.
Yeah. Well, I liked when he's sucking on he's making the noise and he's sucking on the straw. And the gal just kind of gets a little smirk on her face because she knows what he's doing, and she's enjoying it, right? She goes, "Okay, well, this is."
Yeah, they beat the crap out of me for those pictures.
Yeah, they beat.
He's getting a little payback,
and they got those pictures, and they'll use them against you. But yeah, so she's.
And he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care, right? And I don't know. I thought that was a funny scene too, but it also lays out the seriousness one, and this is. Yeah. And this brings up where our knucklehead they try to kill him. But I gotta set this up. So prior to this scene, as we all know, the kids in the neighborhood. Yeah, you have to watch this, Danny. It's great.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Danny. And I'm sorry I didn't hook up with you when I was in Nashville, but if I get down there again, I will definitely stop and see you guys. Maybe all of us need to go to dinner. So the kid on the pink bike with the training wheels, you know, he knows what's going on around town, right? And so he's using them. You know, Sergeant Boyle is using him as his informant, right?
Informant, yeah.
And the kid figures out that I thought it was going to be the body of our police officer, but it's guns. Yeah. So he finds a whole bunch of guns. And of course, Boyle then turns around and sells it back to the bad guys. But there's one you know, so this is, you know, so he's, he's, there's a lot of rogueness in him, but he turns around and sells it to the bad guys and he gives them a hard time. But there's a Derringer in here and Boyle knows something's missing. All right, something's missing. You know, where do you got it? And he knows the kid's got the Derringer, and the kid, oh, come on, you got to let me have it. You got to let me. And what is a kid, 10 or 11, right?
Yeah.
Got to let me have it. Got to let me have it. And I was thinking, okay, that's telegraphing. Something's going to happen later, right?
Yeah.
And he sells the gun to somebody else. He goes, oh, there's something missing. And what are you talking about? So he keeps the Derringer. You know that he keeps the Derringer. Right, but what I liked about this and what is consistent with, I think, law enforcement around the country is there are kids who are on the street and they know what's going on, right?
That's right, yeah.
Oh yeah.
They know who's who in the zoo. They know what's going on, and they can sometimes make some really good informants. Now you're not gonna lay them out as informants. You're gonna get information, and you're gonna find out how you can prove it some other way, right? But they're going to give you the tip. They're going to give you the breadcrumbs to figure it out, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Always. Them and hookers.
Them. Yeah. Well, the thing about the hookers, you have to treat them right.
Right. No, you have to be nice.
You don't even have to give them money for a tip. You just have to treat them right.
Yeah.
Pack of cigarettes works every time.
Or when you're jamming them up, you're just like, all right, what are you doing? God, it's too late. Get out of here. They're complaining. I don't want to take you to jail. And you don't talk down to them or talk in a denigrating way. They'll give you information, even if you're not giving them cigarettes or a $20 bill or whatever. They'll talk to you because you're always so nice. Hey, let me tell you about this. And they give you the information, right? This guy, he's and usually it's the guys that are bad guys, right? This guy's kind of beats people. He's a bad guy. I'll tell you about that guy, right? Yeah. But kids, right? Kids run around. They know what's going on, right? It's their neighborhood, and that's when I saw this. That's what I saw with Boyle and this little kid. What do you think, Cliff?
Yeah, I mean,
universal, right?
Yeah, no matter where they are, the kids see everything. They're on bikes. They're street level. They're not driving around in cars, and they're paying attention to everything. They're always looking and learning, and so they know what's going on for sure.
Yeah, I used to drive my pet peeve was always, the kids would wave at you, and some guys would just glare at them, and I'm like, dude, why are you?
I know why do that.
Yeah, just wave. Yeah,
just wave back and put a smile on your face. They're going to be your best source of information at some point.
If you got those baseball cards or whatever,
stickers,
whatever, And you never know, because some of them will go into gangs, some of them will stay in school, and and some of them will be some pretty good informants and have a positive impression of you. And I remember the Darren Wilson, Michael Brown thing, right? A lot of those witnesses who witnessed it supported the cop.
Yeah, that's right.
And they supported the cop, knowing full well that activists in the neighborhood would make it really rough for them, and they did the right thing. And people do the right thing because, one, they have an incentive. You were good to them, so they're going to do the right thing for you. It's the right thing to do. And Darren Wilson was cleared on all that stuff. Even as they told lies. So for me, it's like, hey, just treat people the right way, and they'll do the right thing. Many will do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but others will do the right thing because they know that you're a good person, right? And
that's right.
So you're building those relationships every single day, even if it's not just you, the agency, but it's you, the person with them. But hey, let's go to the scene, kill you. So I set up the scene because they don't trust Sergeant Boyle, right? And they send one of the guys to kill him. And he finds him in his house, and here he is. He's sitting here. Now, I think this was a pretty funny scene too. And here's our bad guy.
This is great.
He's got his gun on him, right? And he's kind of got the Woody Allen look, right, with the big eyes, What's the guy who played in Young Frankenstein? I can't remember.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about with the big eyes? Marty Feldman. Is that his Marty?
Yeah, Marty Feldman with the bug eyes. Yeah.
He's kind of got this look, and he's there going to kill him, and he's playing with Boyle, right? Yeah, I'm going to kill you, but I might as well play and have a drink with you, and say things I don't like about you, and all that other stuff. And and Boyle's taking the time to ask questions, but I think the funniest thing here is, so I knew, okay, this is the Derringer's got to come up here. This is for me, when he kept the Derringer, I go, okay, it's going to be used later on. I knew it was going to be in this scene. So, and it's funny, and and the thing about it is, I think the writer and the director knew if you were paying attention in the movie, you would understand what's going on in this scene. So he starts to rub his privates, right? And he explains, why'd you kill that guy? Well, we thought he was an FBI informant. So Boyle's getting everything out of this guy, and they're thinking, well, what does it matter? I'm going to kill him, right?
Yeah.
But he starts rubbing himself, and his private. He starts rubbing his private. He goes, well, "What are you doing there? Like, right, I'm about to be killed, and you're rubbing. What the heck are you doing there? And he said, well, I visited one too many of the ladies, the working ladies, and it's just and okay, he's the Derringer has slipped from his belt into his pants.
That's right.
He's got to get the Derringer out to survive this thing. And he, are you all right? Yeah, I picked up a little something I shouldn't have, and I thought a little fungal from the dingle. I thought this was a pretty funny scene, and the question is he going to get the Derringer before he kills? So he's engaging this guy in conversation, and trying to extend this conversation so he can get to the Derringer, which is a slip to his crotch. And he's pretending like he's uncomfortable because he's got a venereal disease as he's doing this.
Yeah.
Where are the girls from? Dublin? Oh,
got
Dublin.
Or something.
I just thought this was a pretty funny scene. And I think that the director and the writers set it up so that you would know and understand what's happening. And it becomes, can he get to the gun, right? Which he's got to survive, right? But how does he get to this gun and kill this guy? And not get hurt himself, right? And I thought it was really funny because you knew what was happening if you've been paying. So what do you think, Cliff? This is a funny scene.
That was what's great about the scene. Now you know what his goal is in this scene, what he's trying to do. You know what each character really has to do. That was really, really good. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, like he says, what about the 5.5 week? No, I was.
I just was high when I did it. I don't know what it means.
And of course, he's still playing with himself. He goes, "Oh Christ, they're eating you alive." So, and now he's just overtly doing it. And McBride. So this is McBride is the, I think it's the cop, right? So the cop.
Yeah, he's the one. McBride was the one they killed.
Just happenstance, right?
Yeah.
He just happenstance. He just happened to be there. And he pulled us over for no reason. He should have just minded his own business. Now, we go back to the murder scene of McBride. He refuses to turn and face him and says, "Fuck you, I'm not going to do what you say," and he gets killed. So a little bit of pride there. And he's in the ocean, right? Says that. And not bad getting away with 2 murders. And he knows that. It's like, you haven't got away with them yet. I just...
Yeah, that's right.
I admire your confidence, Sergeant. And he knows, it's, he's got the gun.
I admire yours. Yeah.
I admire yours. And this is where he shoots him, right? So, I love this because Boyle has a plan and he's successful. And the guy's like, "What? You shot me?" But I love the line right at the end as he gets up and he talks to him, right? He says, I think you look what you've done to me, right? He says, "There's so much, I want to do." That's what this is. The guy who's dying says, "There's so much I want to do," and he says, like, running with the bulls in Pompalone. I mean, that's. I thought that was hilarious. This is what you said.
That's hilarious.
Dying, wait, what were you going to do? Run with the bulls? I mean, so much you wanted to do. He says there's run with the bulls in Pompalone. I thought that was funny too because it was outrageous, right? And now Boyle's got the whole story now, though, right? And and he's and he calls the FBI agent up and he says, "Well, I'm almost to Galway, right?" And he said, "Just come by yourself because." And this is where the FBI realizes he's probably been played, and it's funny because he now has to trust this rogue cop, right?
Yeah, that's right.
He's got to trust him. Either I trust this guy who's telling me they're all corrupt, and I do this on my own with them because he says, ultimately says, "Well, we should get backup, right?"
Yeah.
And he tells him what happens. You shot him in self-defense. Yeah, he says somebody tried to kill me, shot me. This is what he told me. Is he dead?
Hang on. Hang on. Hold on.
Yeah, he's dead now. He is now. Yeah. So anyway, so he's and
well, you know best.
You know best. Boyle knows he knows if he's going to do something, it's going to be on his own. But he kind of has to, right? His hands.
Yeah, he has to.
Right, because he knows the guy admitted, we bribed all the cops up and down the coast.
There's guys behind the guys. He knows, right? He knows what's coming, right? And this is the FBI agent is the idealized American. He's the only one that actually he can trust.
Right.
And he calls him and tells them, even if he doesn't survive, now the FBI agent has the story, right? This is what's going on, right? He tells them what's going on. But I thought that was just the funniest scene where he's going for this Derringer, and what's going to happen. He's got to survive it. It's just how does he get to the gun that's dropped into his crotch? And I thought it was just a funny scene, and I thought the way they set it up was pretty funny.
Well done. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, it was well done. And then the whole the dialogue between them. Well, you're pretty confident. Well, you're pretty confident, Sergeant Doyle. And then when he gets shot, I had so much to do. Like what for what? Run the bulls and pop along?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Like have kids?
But again,
family? What were you gonna do?
The whole movie scene, like the bad guys, they lay out. It's like a Bond movie. They lay out the whole plan,
right?
And then Bond kills him and gets away, and now he knows the whole plan. It's kind of like the same thing. The guy tells him where it's coming in at, and who they murdered. It's like, just shoot. If I would have been just shot him and left, I would have got into the whole. And then with that,
I know you said that. Yeah, it's like I think it was the man with it was Goldfinger, right? They got him, James Bond on the bench, and they got some laser, and they go, all right, well, you're gonna leave here, die, and I go, why don't they just shoot him, right? But they gotta give some elaborate way for him to get murdered so that he can
use a secret watch
from it. Yeah, so it's. Yeah, you're right, Scott. So this guy did way too much talking, but you know what? In the movie, he wanted to torture Sergeant Boyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's the rogue smartass, and I'm going to watch. This will be fun. And he's a cop, and I want to kill a cop. I've already killed one. Now we're going to kill two, and we're going to get away with it. And he just wants to see his impression. But I just love the way they set it up. They set it up that you knew he was going to have a Derringer. And he's in this, and how does he get to the Derringer in his crotch? And he pretends like he has the necessary.
Those girls from Dublin are bad.
Oh yeah, I never sleep with them.
Yeah.
All right, it's let's roll the next one. It's suicide. So he finds out what happens, right? And it isn't suicide, and he does a couple things. He's getting ready, right? And I think he did talk to the widow, right, to tell her what happened before he does this. And he goes and he gets in his best dress uniform, right, and he gets a rifle. And he calls our guy, and our guy, Don, he comes up, or our FBI Special Agent Everett, he comes. And Everett says, this is suicide that we're doing this. And, I'm going to do it regardless without you because they killed two people. And this is his town, right? He may be the rogue, but it's his town. These are his, it was his partner, right? And they tried to kill him, and they're going to kill him afterwards if he doesn't do anything anyway. So let's do it, right? And this was the interesting thing. I'm thinking, okay, well, this is a comedy and it's fun, but here you are, an FBI agent in another country, and somebody gives you a rifle and says, okay, we're going to take these guys down. I'm like, I can see the FBI with Danger Will Robinson. I'm not doing that. Too many protocol too many protocols here. But he goes with it, and he's going to help our rogue cop take these bad guys down. And this is where they have that conversation. We're alone, right? We can't call for backup, and that's when it's okay. It's pretty clear everybody's in on it, right? And they're placating you, and so are you in for a penny, in for a pound, as they say? Are you in?
I love that line. You're FBI,
What's that?
right? You're used to shooting unarmed women and children.
Oh yeah, Waco. Yeah. Yeah, and that's funny. It's got so many American references in this.
Yeah,
in this movie,
it
like
does.
Compton. Yeah, Waco, and it's a pretty funny movie. But here they're doing their plan, and they're unloading the boat. As you see, they're unloading the boat of the cocaine onto the trucks, which is an interesting thing because I know this is for movies and all that stuff, but you got two guys working and three guys standing talking.
Yeah.
It's like you know what I mean. They're unloading the boat. He goes, if you get it over quicker, everybody's moving the load. It gets done quicker. But no, we got three guys standing around talking and two guys emptying and one guy behind the, anyways, I just thought.
You ever driven by a Caltrans working area?
Yeah.
One guy's working and five guys are standing there watching.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, okay, I guess if, I'm thinking efficiency. Let's get everybody working and get this stuff moved quickly so that we're not as liable but hey, we got to have some dialogue for the movie, right? So here, they're unloading the boat, and how many times have you shot one of these? Well, 3 times. 3 times, Jesus, So having this conversation, are you ready for this? And our FBI agent decides, yeah, I'm going down with you. We're going to do this together, even though he thinks everybody's going to get killed here. And Boyle is just going with it looked like it was a 45 to me that he was carrying, right?
Yeah.
And this is where, okay, they both think they're going to die here, but they're going to go down in a blaze of glory. So, and I think he says something, you must be getting used to this by now. And
he asked him how many times he's been shot. Yeah, 3 times. You must be getting used to it. Yeah.
3 times. You must be getting used to it by now.
And then the other reference to the war was, this is 2011, was, well, just pin a medal on my body like they do those poor lads from Iraq.
Yeah.
It's the guard. Oh, you got to be joking. Here's Mark Strong. This is where they do the two-handed, 2 guns, and and he's coming down and thinking he's by himself, right? And then this is when
Yeah.
our FBI agent opens up with the automatic rifle as well. And these guys they all got handguns. Now suddenly everybody starts shooting at Boyle. How can you miss this target? I guess these guys aren't hitting the range very much, and so he just walks down there and just starts shooting his 45 at him. That's the way.
Yeah.
And this was the kind where it was okay. This is a lot of these English kind of movies. It's just straight up shooting at each other, right? There is no. It isn't like The Heat, the movie The Heat, where it's these drawn out gun battles where people are getting positioned. They just now suddenly it's mano a mano, although the English version, when they're just shooting at each other, right? And you see that here, right? Yeah. Boyle just takes them on, and our FBI agent is shooting at them as well. And are you kidding me? It better be Christmas. So Mark's and Boyle's actually doing a pretty good job. He's hitting some of these guys, and our FBI agent is hitting some of these guys. So they're whittling these guys down, and ultimately Boyle gets hit, but he shoots. He kneels down and he takes aim eventually, right? And he hits our main character Strong, who's got two guns in his hands. Eventually, he pulls out a second gun and he just goes to take him on. So a little unrealistic.
Well, Pat, earlier when they were in the bar with the new cop from Dublin, when he's in there on duty, he's playing a shooting game.
That's right.
The whole time while he's talking to him. So he's actually practicing shooting.
Yeah, that's right.
So these guys, most thugs don't go to the range; they just start pulling the trigger. So
I gotta say something about our gay cop who got killed, and I think they sent him there because they didn't because he was a straight-laced guy.
Right.
Right. They sent him to Boyle, and he was a straight-laced guy. He's probably somebody that wasn't corruptible. And even though he stumbled on them, they knew that he wasn't going to go along because that's just how he was. And here's our guy Mark Strong doing, his best James Cagney impression with guns here, right? You know what I'm talking about? Those old gangster movies where James Cagney's got two guns and he's shooting.
Yeah.
And a lot of cool.
Come and get me.
Good job.
Copper, dirty rotten copper.
Yeah, come and get me, copper. Right, and that's what I thought of when I saw him doing the two guns thing. Is the old James Cagney gangster movies. Given that they got all these references to American pop culture, that's I guess not surprising, right? And
I don't know if you knew there was you remember Steve Had a Meal at all from Linwood?
No.
He was in like 10 shootings, but he got into shooting in East LA at the on-ramp. And when he got out and the guy came after him with a tire iron or something, he got out with two guns. And he shot him with two guns. Oh my God.
If I drew my backup, I'm better off just throwing it at him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I couldn't hit crap with that little 5-shot revolver.
No.
And one of the other things, I don't know if you noticed it, but they're playing Western music.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
They're playing Western music as they're doing the shootout, which just adds to the comic relief because
that's right.
It's in Ireland, and because sometimes they'll do some dramatic Irish kind of or English kind of stuff, but no, they do the Western shootout because it's
the old West. Yeah.
The old West, and So anyway, so our heroes, at least they survive, and he gets out onto the boat, right? Boyle gets out onto the boat, and he's going to finish off the main guy who's out on the boat, and who's now down and got pretty palatial. The stateroom was pretty palatial on this boat, if you remember correctly. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll see it in a little bit here. Missed that guy Cliff. Yeah, he's he's on here every now and then, although he hasn't been on in a while there, Danny, because I think he's doing his own podcast. Hey, you got to.
I think he's talking about Jaramillo. I think Jaramillo. He died. He passed away. That officer passed away. Yeah. Steve, yeah.
All right. Well, we got before we get into the last scene, is we watch Boyle take out the main guy. The boat is on fire.
Yes.
Stateroom, and he ends up disabling the guy. I think the guy dies of fire, but and then Boyle disappears, right? And this is where the fact that you go, okay, so here's the boat is on fire, you just killed the guy, and and the boat blows up, and Boyle disappears, and everybody thinks he's dead, right? Even our FBI.
Yeah, that's right. He thinks he's dead.
He thinks he's dead. And we'll roll the last scene. But hey, before we roll the last scene, Cliff, where can they find you on YouTube? I forgot to put that on there. So
the Cliff Yates Show on YouTube. That's where my podcast is filmed and other videos. And so it's also the name of the podcast, available on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, you name it. Cliff Yates. You can find me. See you there.
Okay, great. All right, so here we go. We got we're finished up this scene. Like I said, a pretty palatial state boat for a working boat is what that looked like to me.
Yeah.
Don't be a sore loser, right? and Boyle's got a plan, though. He's got a plan for how he's going to get off this boat.
That's right.
And not have to worry about the men behind the men, right? Which is what he's talking about. Go ahead.
I think that he takes the money off the boat.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But then he says, the guy says it was only 200 million. He goes, you're always overestimating. They're always overestimating.
And I just like he stays in this kind of rogue, wisecracking cop, even in this scene, right? So the FBI lad, so they're having this conversation. It's interesting that they have these conversations. Probably hasn't had much fun since they burned both kids in Waco. This is where
oh my God. That was crazy.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, it's
Colombians are more reliable.
Colombians were more reliable.
So yeah, it's what you. It's a like you guys both said. The movie at first is like, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I'm gonna like this.
It gets funny. Hey, let's roll with the last scene, and we'll finish up the. And this is where FBI agent Everett suddenly realizes maybe Boyle is alive, and maybe Boyle got away with it. And you know what? He doesn't care. He's smiling, right? He's okay. And here's our photographer who's taking pictures, and he goes, hey, you can be on the cover of a book, right? And he's talking about how this is great, right? He goes, what do you mean? People died and all this other shit. Well, but you solved this great crime, right? What do you mean Boyle died? And then
you always writing books.
Yeah, you guys, you always write books. It's a fish out of water story. Lots of actions, a bit of humor. Throwing some young ones, getting their kicks off. Yeah. Yeah, it's that no happy ending though. Well, what do you mean? You foiled a multi-million-dollar drug trafficking operation, and so yeah. So this was, and of course they used this crazy photographer, and then the little kids here too. They knocked out a trio of drug barons to boot. Lost a good man. He wouldn't be, and this is where Everett gets clued in. They never recovered the body, right? And so they all believe that he got away with it.
It's a big sea out there.
That he's out there, right? He's dead. No, he's burned up or drowned. And this is where they bring up the whole swimming thing. But he's a really good swimmer. So, and of course, if people weren't paying attention, they figured out, okay, they gave the clue that their lovable Boyle, the lovable rogue, is out there somewhere with the money, right? That's what. That's. So this was a funny movie, though, huh? Funny.
Yeah, and well written, and it was really great.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah,
but he's like, oh, that Olympic story was bullshit, and the kid's like, yeah, the photographer, maybe so, but be pretty easy to look up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where he's, he flashes back. He says, I can't remember are you really a dumb or are you really smart? And he gives him that
nice smile.
This smile, a big grin, and there it is. There's the grin.
I love that one.
You're figuring it out.
That's
right?
so great.
And Everett's gone, this guy outplayed all of us.
Oh,
right?
man.
But he's okay with it. He's okay with it, right?
Yeah.
All my bags are packed. I'm ready to go. And then they go right into John Denver's all
John Denver, leaving on a jet plane.
Yeah.
Good movie, and it was a lot of fun watching this movie. If you guys haven't, our audience haven't seen it, Danny, definitely watch the movie. It's fun. And,
yeah, it's great.
Have a Corona, because they're having Coronas in here. Or one or the other, you know.
I don't know where you find Coronas in Ireland. I'll tell you that. I never saw a Corona there.
When I was there, I was drinking Guinness because that was.
Yeah, I drink Guinness.
Occasionally, I had a cider because I liked the ciders, but I wouldn't drink the English cider. I had to have an Irish one, right? Yeah. And of course, I was drinking some Irish whiskey as well. So, I think it's a pretty good whiskey up in Scotland. I was just there in Scotland this past year too, and it was good. But yeah, so I ended up really liking this movie. I'm gonna have to look for some more dark comedy ones to do because they're fun. I do want to get into English series, those crime ones, what you call it, Smoking Aces, and some of those other ones. I'll start looking those up because those are actually pretty funny too. And but this was, and I like Brendan Gleeson. He's just a good actor and
really good.
He does serious stuff. He does comedic stuff. He's just a all around good guy. But hey, thanks for joining me on Morning Coffee with the Chief, folks. We're at the end of the show. I got a plumber coming. I got this knocking sound, and it's just I bought some fixtures from China, and I'm paying for it, right? So and now I got to get a new water charger. I had to send all the way to China to get it. It took me 2 weeks to get it. Now I got the plumber coming today to replace it. So it's your pressure, right? The pressure is wrong if you get knocking. The regulator was off in the building. It kind of blew the whole the charger out for one of the showers that we have, and I'm going to be doing our whole kitchen this year, but we'll be doing Pfizer or some American product this time that can stand up. But hey, thanks for joining me again today. I'm glad you guys had fun with the movie.
Pleasure. And it's always good to see you, bro.
Good to see you, my brother. Good to see both you guys. Yeah. All right.
Stick around for a quick debrief, and Martine, you can take it away.
Y'all come back now, you hear?